Oh, hi! My name is Charlotte. I'm a rat living in the walls of a Russian laboratory. Hmm, the researchers must be starting early today. This is the first stage of a new study introduced by Ivan Pavlov, a scientist here. You see, Pavlov is doing an experiment on the physiology of digestion and salivation using dogs. While he was running trials for his experiment, he noticed something very interesting about his dogs. They began to salivate whenever a researcher walked up to their cage or put them into harnesses he used for the experiment. He theorized that the dogs connected the arrival of the researcher or action of being put in the harness with food they would receive later. So he set up a new study, and what we saw just now was the first stage. Stage 1 of this new study was to present two stimuli to the dogs. A stimulus is something that incites to action or exertion, or quickens action, feeling, or thought. Pavlov presented a bell and some food to his dog. The bell has no significant meaning to the dog. It is simply an object. The food does have a meaning to the dog. It's a source of sustenance. The dog's natural urge to eat the food will cause the dog to salivate whether food is being given to them or not. Pavlov began by presenting the bell to his dogs in the laboratory one by one, ringing it in front of them. Food would be presented to the dogs separately. The second stage in this study is to present both stimuli at the same time. A researcher will ring the bell and provide the food to the dog directly after ringing the bell. After a while, the dog will begin to associate the ringing of the bell with the pending food and salivate even if the food is not present, just as Pavlov observed in his previous experiment. The third and final stage of this study is to use only the bell to elicit a response. A researcher will ring the bell, and the dog will salivate even though food is not present and is not provided after ringing the bell. This will occur because the dog has associated the ringing of the bell with food. This process is known as classical conditioning because Pavlov conditioned his dogs to salivate when the bell was rung. Classical conditioning involves three types of stimuli: unconditioned, neutral, and conditioned. An unconditioned stimulus is a stimulus that elicits a response without any prior experience. In this case, the food is an unconditioned stimulus. The dog did not need to learn to salivate in the presence of food. They just do. A neutral stimulus is a stimulus which initially produced no specific response. In this study, the bell is considered a neutral stimulus because it does not elicit any response from the dog other than, "I heard a noise." However, this isn't the case for the whole study. Only in the first two stages is this considered a neutral stimulus. A conditioned stimulus is an environmental event whose significance is learned through classical conditioning. This is a stimulus that has had significance instilled in it. In this study, the bell is considered a conditioned stimulus in the final stage as it elicits a learned response from the dogs. Classical conditioning is a way of associating two stimuli with each other. To recap, the food is a stimulus to which the dog has an innate response. They salivated. The bell started off having no meaning to the dogs, but slowly gained significance once paired with the food. And all of this together makes up classical conditioning, a kind of learning. But I'm getting ahead of myself. After all, it's still being discovered.